This is lesson 7.11 on page 258. So it's all about borrowing money and paying back interest and kind of understanding how much money you will actually pay back when you are borrowing and paying back interest. So to find it, first you have the principal amount. That is the amount of money that you borrowed to pay off something. And then you have your interest rate. That is the amount of money on top of your principal amount of money you have to pay back. So, to find those answers, first you have to take your principal amount and you have to times it by your percentage. Well, when we times by percentages, we are actually multiplying by the decimal. So we will take 6,000 times the decimal of 11 3/4%. Well, we know 3/4 as a decimal. If we think about it in quarters, 3/4 of a dollar is 75 cents. So it's literally saying 11.75%. To turn it into a decimal, we just bounce it over two places, 1, 2. So 0.1175. And then we multiply that. So I'm actually going to change this up a little bit. So I'm going to do 1175 times 6,000. So I just have to drop my zeros. 6 times 5 is 30. 6 times 7 is 42, plus 3 is 45. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 4 is 10. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 1 is 7. Now, this is not how much interest you have. Now we have to put our decimal in there, because if I was paying off, let's see what that would be. $7,050,000 for a $6,000 loan, that would be really, really bad. So you have to count over 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So your decimal goes right there. So each year you have $750 worth of interest acquired that you have to pay on it. However, we know that we have 3 years to pay for this loan. So we need to multiply that 705 by the 3 years we have to pay. So it turns into 5 times 3 is 15. 3 times 0 is 0, plus 1 is 1. 3 times 7 is 21. So in 3 years, we are going to acquire, or we're going to have to pay $2,115 worth of interest. And then with that, the total amount we have to repay, so we have to pay the principal amount, the amount we took out for the loan, plus the interest. So we just have to add those two numbers together. So $2,115 plus our $6,000 loan. So 5 plus 0 is 5. 1 plus 0 is 1. 1 plus 0 is 1. 2 plus 6 is 8. So altogether in those 3 years, we will pay $8,115. So 11 3/4% interest is quite a bit. I would not recommend taking that loan out. If we know that if we're paying it off in, say, 6 months rather than a year, instead of multiplying by 3, because that represents 3 years, we would divide it by 2, or multiply by 6 over 12, which we could reduce to 1/2. So you'd multiply by the fraction, which would make it smaller. So let's do an example from down here. So this represents, can you still see it? There we go. So we have the principal amount of $925. That's how much our loan is. We're going to pay 13% of interest, but we're going to pay it all off in 1 month. So the formula we're using is I equals PRT. So P is principal, R is the rate of interest, and T is the time you're paying off. So this is actually going to be 925 times 0.13 times 1 month. 1 month, in this case, we normally do it in years, so we're literally going to times it by 1/12 because we are going to get it done with in 1 month out of a year. And then you just multiply that straight across. So go ahead and press pause and find the answer. So the answer you should have received is your interest equals $10.02. So in that month, on top of this $925, you will pay $10.02. This one's just like the other one. So you would do 1,000 times your interest, which this time is 12 3/8. So that would be times 0.12, and then 3/8 is 375. Times, now you have 9 months. So you're just going to do 9/12. However, you could reduce 9/12. What goes in both of them? 3. So 3/4. We know 3/4 is that 0.75. So you could just multiply it by an additional 0.75. Totally up to you. So go ahead and solve this equation. So push pause. At the end, your interest for that 9 months would be $92.81. So go ahead and solve for number 12 because it's also a 6-month period. So it's not a full year, so you have to do 6/12. So push pause and solve this equation. If you did not get I equals $33.13, check your work, because remember, it's just multiplying 500 times your percentage as a decimal. So this would be 0.1325 or 1325 times 1/2, because 6 months is a half of a year, or times 6/12. Okay, in the terms, if it says like that 90 days, 90 days would represent pretty much 3 months. 1 year, you just multiply it by 1 at the end. 5 years, you'd multiply it by 5 at the end to find your interest.